Welcome back to CEOs of the Industry. Today we have John Schwartz, the CEO and founder from Schwartz Farms in Minnesota. Welcome to the program, John.
Thanks, Jim.
What I love about this show is just connecting with all of the leadership across the country in the pork industry. You guys have quite a legacy at Schwartz Farms. Maybe give me a little bit of a background on you, John, and some of your foundational vision.
Yeah, so we were raised right in this area. I'm one of nine kids raised on a dairy farm, and my brother Joe and I started crop farming in the late '70s, early '80s. And as time went on, it became apparent that we needed a little get involved in more enterprises in crop farming, and so we sort of dabbled in pork production as a sideline up until the mid '90s. Purchased pigs from many different states and provinces of Canada and put them in temporary short-term arrangement barns here and there. And in the '90s, the industry began to change drastically. And to add a little color to that, we have to realize that we had just come out of the '80s, and the '80s is what was known as the farm crisis in the Midwest, where there were foreclosures and a lot of pain in the industry due to leverage being used probably in a way that wasn't too wise on high-priced farmland. And so consequently, there wasn't a lot of appetite or desire for leverage or debt in the Midwest. And for that reason, there had not been a lot of reinvestment or retooling in the industry. And as this was going on in the Southeast and the Carolinas, companies, producers down there were specializing in pork production, where we looked at it as more of a sideline at that time to our crop farming enterprises, which we considered to be our core businesses. Whereas in the Southeast, the Murphys and the Carrolls and some of these companies were specializing. They were armed with really good data. They knew their costs. They were leveraging contract growers to help raise their production and things, the type of production practices that were not common in the Midwest. And uh, as that technology migrated to the Midwest, most of us felt threatened. It was a threat to our independence. We were fiercely independent, and we didn't like to change. But as the more we uh, analyzed and looked at it, myself personally and others, we realized that in this threat there's an opportunity, and so actually the Midwest had an advantage over the Southeast, a tremendous advantage in corn price and access to packing plants, in good farm soil to utilize the mineral nutrients which the Southeast didn't have. So we actually had an advantage, but we just were not exploiting that advantage because we weren't really aware of it. So the decision that we were faced with, the fact that the industry was going to change was inevitable. Our only choice was, do we want to be part of it or not? And so we decided we want to be part of it, and with the help of some good lenders that backed us and great families of contract growers that uh, worked with us, and a lot of luck along the way, we kind of got to where we are today.
So what you're saying is in the mid 90s, you guys had a choice that it was we're going to ramp this up and really make this work, and you decided to go all in. Was that the turning point, John? And
I would say the mid to late '90s were the turning point. Prior to that, we also, I think, viewed our pork production as a sideline, and we weren't terribly committed to the industry. Whereas in the mid to late '90s, we ended up getting involved in long-term contracts with families that built new facilities to feed for us, and that, along with that commitment, came a lot of responsibility. These families were taking out mortgages and counting on our contract payments to cash flow their facilities. So there was a lot of responsibility with it that we took very seriously. And then in the late '90s, we took over our first sow farm that we actually had our own employees on. Prior to that was all independent contractors or weed pig purchase agreements. and we probably tripled our employee base just by doing that. But we took on a 5,400 sow farm with a 12-year lease that we ended up purchasing. So I think as we those those decisions and those commitments made us more comfortable with ownership and commitment, and we continue to commit to more, and I think that comfort level helped us. It helped us get out of our comfort zone, which maybe was kind of narrow prior to that, and helped us continue to grow.
But what about leadership under pressure? You had the vision. How did you thrive in leadership at that time and currently?
Yeah, like any business, I mean, there's always times of stress, and not unlike any other business, we go through down cycles in the pricing and the economics of it. But probably the most stressful time that I've been through since I've been in the industry was the shutdown of the plants in the COVID uh, pandemic. And I want to emphasize that by no means did I ever face these stresses alone. We have a great team that step up and share equal amount of stress and accountability. But that situation, when the plant shut down, we were in a little bit of a unique situation. There was not probably much of a segment of the economy that wasn't impacted negatively by the pandemic. However, what made our situation unique is that we're located geographically. The plants that we supply had the biggest situation, the biggest challenge with employees not showing up because of COVID outbreaks. And so we didn't know with a live animal that continues to grow, what do we do? We didn't know when the plants would open up and at what capacity. So we were faced with some very, very tough decisions. And we did have to cull a fair amount of animals and give some away, whatever we could do to create space to get through that situation. Everybody stepped up, uh, did their share, and we had a great response from the management team and family and everybody. And I think, out of these stressful times, there's always lessons learned, and one was a tremendous risk that we face in this industry every day. And I had always told my kids and nephews in the second generation that we will see a time when pigs are worth less than zero because there is no insurance. There's nothing you can do to mitigate some of those risks. And during that time, we did see prices less than zero. It cost us about $22 a head to cull some of the pigs that we had to cull. And there's no way to mitigate that risk. Yeah, we had the futures sold, but the futures never dropped below $30, and the negative $22 is a $50 basis or $100 head negative basis, and that doesn't work very well. And so I think to respect the risk that we face every day is a good lesson. And the other thing about going through times like that is just to test your core values. We all put these things on our website, and they can seem kind of cliche, but as we were euthanizing pigs and giving pigs away, we're also honoring purchase agreements on the other side that we purchase pigs off about 20,000 sows every week, and we should honor those contracts. That's what we're called on to do. But sometimes it's easy in those type of situations to make knee-jerk reactions, and I'm glad that our team could see that that's not the way. Look at the long view, not make short-term decisions.
Let's touch on innovation and sustainability, John. So balancing the old and the new. Schwartz Farms has a reputation for balancing tradition with innovation. Can you give us an inside look at how you foster a culture that respects longstanding values, but constantly pushing for cutting edge solutions?
Yeah, Jim, I think it's not only possible to stick to your tradition and core values and be innovative. I think it's expected. And in our business, we have to constantly be innovating, and that is one of our core values is innovation. And I think if you create a culture, you mentioned culture in your question, and culture is underrated as a value in a company. And if you create a healthy culture, one where you support your people and create the culture that is a winning culture, they will do almost anything for you. And I think an example of innovation a few years back, the Proposition 12 situation in California came to the point where it was obvious it was going to be a law that was going to be enforced. And we have a lot of problems with Proposition 12. The interstate commerce issue, part of it alone, is a big issue. However, ultimately, doesn't make any difference what I think. What's important is what the market needs, and the processors that we sell to, we're faced with needing supply for California. And our team, all I did was plant the seed and work out the deal with the processor, and that's the easy part. The hard part was the execution. That's always the tough part. And our team of family members and non-family members, the leaders in the team, just stepped up and they got it done. We either built or retrofitted a material amount of cell production that was Proposition 12 compliant in a time frame that I think was almost unrealistic to get done. So I think that's an example. You stick to your core values, but you innovate, and I think if you have the right culture, you can get it done.
Great insight, John. Again, core values, innovation. Now, sustainability is a word that's often used, I hear, in the pork industry, but sometimes it lacks a bit of depth, I think, at times when we talk about sustainability. So, how does Schwartz Farms redefine what it means to be sustainable? And how do you see these efforts reshaping agriculture and swine production?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I think on a more local level, and I'm sure you're aware of this being an industry that we continue as an industry to produce more pork with less resources, less water, less feed, less acres. I mean, that's very well documented and proven, and that is the definition of sustainability is producing more with less resources. I think what's important is that whatever we say we're going to do, we follow through on, be it nutrient management and that type of thing. On the bigger picture, on the carbon sequestration and these issues, we're still learning. I was just in the other room, and my brother was on a call about the carbon credits and becoming carbon neutral and this type of thing. And there's so many moving parts right now. I believe in science. I think science will tell us what we need to do, and we'll have to adapt to it. However, the challenge I think we have today is we aren't quite sure what we're being compared to. Where's zero? Where do we start from? And so it's a work in progress, and I think whatever it takes, whatever science, whatever is proven, I hope we can take the politics out of this and just work together to try and solve this problem. But whatever we have to do, we'll do it and step up and do it.
Now, entrepreneurial spirit, John, as a family business, how have you navigated the pressure of legacy while carving out your own leadership style and personal philosophies that drive decision-making process?
Well, family businesses have challenges and opportunities upon themselves. They're unique, and I think family businesses don't have a tremendous reputation or as far as track record when it comes to becoming multi-generational or their succession. And I think the reason for that is they're sometimes held to a low standard. You've probably heard the adage that the first generation builds it, and the second generation maintains it, and the third generation loses it. And I think if that's the standard you hold your family or your succession plan to, that's probably what you're going to get. And I think if that is what you're satisfied with, then maybe the decision should be to sell the business. And that, by the way, is not a wrong decision. Not every generation 2 or 3 wants to be involved in a certain business, be it pork production or whatever it is. And in many cases, the right decision then is to exit the business and do something different. Personally, what I strive for in leadership of the company is continuous improvement. And I think it's really important to realize that you don't improve by focusing on how good you are. You improve by focusing on where you need to improve, where are your vulnerabilities, where's the low-hanging fruit, what little incremental changes constantly. It's a very, very tough competitive business. A lot of companies have failed in this business, and you have to constantly be looking over your shoulder, seeing what is your competition doing better than you're doing, where are your opportunities. And I believe in celebrating your successes momentarily, But if you sit on your laurels and celebrate too long, you'll be run over and left behind. So it's continuous improvement, and that's what it's all about. And as far as leadership style and that, I think it's really just being yourself. There's a lot of books written and seminars put on about servant leadership, and that's great because I believe in servant leadership. But I truly believe that we have been practicing servant leadership at Schwartz Farms for many years. We just didn't know what it was called. And what I have really tried to pass on next generation is that you can't be better than your team and your people. And when I say be better, I mean be better. You can't just say don't act better, because you have to be authentic or people will see right through it. And that's so important. And really, it's leaders have to be accountable, and that's every leader going down from small farm managers to department heads to whatever it is. And the thing about leadership is you can't delegate blame. If there's a problem, it's not we, it's I. But if there's a success, it's we. And that's very important, because nothing's really about me. It's about everybody else. And so it's really not about you, but it's only about you. So it's kind of a lonely place sometimes, but that's, I think, the way you have to lead people, lead a company.
So it's been a long journey from where you started and where you are today. How does it feel, John?
It feels good. We've been through a lot. Um, in hindsight, I do a few things different. I moved a little slow sometimes. You got to be quick on your feet and respond. Worry less. Just manage what's in your control. But yeah, it feels good. It has to be about more than the profit. We have a profit motive, and I certainly don't apologize for that. You have to have a profit motive. Even nonprofits have a profit motive. They just have to give it away. Uh, but it has to be something bigger than that. It has to be, and I think where you find the satisfaction is just seeing the impact of the communities in which you invest. And I think society sometimes underestimates the value of investment in the communities. All the companies that I know of, not just pork companies, but industries in general, are practice philanthropy. We support churches and schools and fire departments and food shelves, and we should. There are immediate needs out there. But I think what's underestimated is the value of investing in these communities and the opportunities that are created. A company our size, we have about 500 full-time employees and probably at least 150 independent contractor employees that directly count on us. And if you look at the impact of 650 payrolls and benefits and insurance, retirement, it would take a lot of philanthropy to create that. And I think we have to realize that investment in communities is really valuable, and that's where I think we see the satisfaction ultimately is seeing that.
So investment in communities and then industry impact. Do you envision, or how do you envision Schwartz reshaping not just the pork industry, but how do we look at agriculture as a whole?
Well, I think a company our size to reshape the industry is kind of a stretch, but I think that we just need to continue to respond to changes, to try and do things right and try and be good at what we do. It's a changing industry, and we have to continue to change with it and keep our eyes open. Uh, the industry with all the regenerative fuels and things are going to impact us. We aren't sure how that's going to happen yet. It's going to impact all of us, and we're learning on all of these different topics. So I think we just have to continue to respond.
Well, let's move to challenges and strategic moves. So every company faces moments when it might leap into the unknown. You talked about it in the 90s. You started crops, dairy, you went full force in the swine industry or to ramp that up. But is there a specific time when you made a bold move, even risky or strategic, that paid off?
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind from a production standpoint. In the 90s, most production was early 90s was most nurseries on sow farms and raising a nursery 40-pound, 50-pound pig and shipping it to a finishing barn. And the concept of offsite weaning became was discussed as an opportunity, and so we created contracts with people to sell us weaned pigs versus feeder pigs, and there really were no contracts to copy out there, to develop our own, and we did that, and it worked, and it carried us over, got us by, and I think maybe a bigger leap was the wean to finish versus the nursery type of production. So in the 90s, almost all production was done in three site where they're going through a nursery and a finisher. And we decided to, with the advice of a couple of consultants and the trial gentlemen down in Iowa were the first ones I knew that were doing this. And we went down and visited them, and we decided to skip the nursery phase and wean right into finishing barns. That was kind of a radical concept at the time, and there were no contracts to copy again on how do you compensate a contract grower to do this. So it was a leap of faith for the contract growers as well as ourselves, and we worked out contracts and had to do some things to ensure the energy use that would be compensated for and this type of thing. And it worked. It worked, and I think it streamlined our company and made us more efficient. Uh, Beyond that, we're still looking, and I'm sure we're making changes that we don't think about. But as far as we're still looking for the next thing that can make us more efficient and probably give us a little edge, and we'll keep our eyes open for that.
So you've navigated a lot of success among challenges. You talked about some of the challenges when the plant shut down, some of the Prop 12 stuff, the market's constantly shifting. Any other challenges you're facing or foresee that we continue to adapt to, John?
Oh yeah, I can lay awake and think about a lot of them, but one that we've struggled with, and the industry continues to integrate into packing. There's a larger percentage of totally integrated systems than there used to be, and we were offered several opportunities to integrate into packing. At this time, we had decided that we were going to remain in live production and supply to packers. Um, and that's a big decision. It was based on our thought that we think we're good at live production. We want to continue to be good at live production. And what it forces us to do, I think, is to really work on relationships, and that's a lot of the fun of this whole industry, is just the relationships and the people. But so the relationship with the processors we sell to, and that we build a trusting relationship, and that we will always be necessary. We want to be a preferred supplier, and ultimately we'll find out if that's the right path to go. It's worked for us, and I think we have to view our packer that we sell to as partners, not as adversaries, because if you don't have that type of an attitude, it's not going to work. And I think we have to get beyond some of the rhetoric about whether a company is foreign owned or how or big is bad and this type of thing. It really comes down to the people you deal with and the trust factor. And I've done handshake deals with some of these companies, and we'd be a rounding error on their balance sheet, our company, and they've honored them. And so I think to categorize companies because of certain, every foreign company that owns any company in the U.S., it's a U.S. wholly held subsidiary that has to operate under U.S. rules and regulations. And the United States has been owning subsidiaries in foreign countries for years. So I think we have to get beyond that and just look at the people we deal with, and the people that we can trust and we can work with. And the other thing we've learned about the packing industry, the fully integrated systems, is that about 80% of the cost of getting a pig harvested and cut into the primal cuts is in the live production side of it. Only 20 to 25% is in the harvesting and processing into private cuts. So you can't be bad at the 80% and make it up to 20%. I mean, there have been times where that balance has gone out of whack in the late 2017-18 time frame. The packing margins became excessive, and capitalism responded by building more packing plants. So hopefully we can keep that in balance where that continues to work out. But that's one of the larger challenges that we have thought about and wrestled with too.
You're still fully involved with Schwartz, John. What keeps the fire burning?
Um, I like the industry. I like the people we work with, and I want to make sure that before I am not fully involved, that I feel that we're ready to. I think we have a great team here that I could be gone tomorrow in the day-to-day operations. I wouldn't be missed a bit. However, on some of the larger strategic plans, that I like to have my input yet, and I enjoy what I'm doing. The industry's got great people, and it's a great industry to be in.
As we wrap with legacy and future vision, in a world that constantly demands growth, John, how do you measure success beyond the bottom line? And what do you hope the legacy of Schwartz Farms will be within the swine industry?
Yeah, I think beyond the bottom line, I discussed that earlier. It's got to be about what you see, the reinvestment and the opportunities created, and that's really what it's all about. As far as legacy, I have run our hog operation, our family operation. I've done that for a long time now, and really, what you want to create a legacy is where you aren't missed. I mean, if a legacy, probably, if I have a legacy that it's anything that is positive, I probably won't know that for 10 to 15 years, and I think that's how you have to look at it. You know, um, a private business has the ability not to look quarter to quarter like a public traded company, the pressure that they have to make profits every quarter. We can look at the long view, and many decisions we do in production are based on the long view. An example is just investment in fixed assets. We have invested in many fixed assets, finishing barns. We still rely largely upon contract growers to finish most of our production, but we have invested a material amount in fixed assets of finishing facilities and farrowing. And normally, I cannot, on the short term, I'm better off owning inventory and less fixed assets. But in the long term, when these assets are depreciated out, I'm hoping to have an advantage over a totally rented company. So again, I think the legacy. I hope when I do step down, that we have the people in place that 10 to 15 years, 20 years from now, there'll be success. And I don't think I'll know that until I may be not around here.
We'll get you out of here on this, John. The future of Schwartz Farms. So when you look 10 to 20 years ahead, what innovations or shifts do you believe will profoundly change how Schwartz operates, and how are you positioning the company now to lead to those future landscapes?
Yeah, I'm optimistic about our future. I think uh, we've worked hard on succession and continue to work hard on succession of both ownership and management, not just family, but the whole system. Um, and probably being consistent with what I said earlier about not focusing on what you're good at, but focusing on what the challenges are. The next generation of our company and all production companies are going to face a lot of challenges, which we always have, but they're going to have to be better at certain things than I have been at, just because of the world they're going to live in. There's going to continue to be more regulation, more scrutiny on your what we call our social license, our ability to operate. That's going to continue to be questioned more. We're going to have to work more on sustainability, and most of us weren't raised that. We came up just raising pigs, and that's what we thought we had to know. I think strategic planning will be more important. I will admit that I was always more of a reactor, looking for opportunities, and we grew a lot by acquisition, and that's worked for us. However, it can be a little more of a like jack your own a little more. You don't have that roadmap to go by. You're kind of you're constantly reacting to things, and it's worked. But I think having a strategy, a 4 or 5 year plan with flexibility built into it. It can't be too rigid, or as fast as things change, you won't be quick enough on your feet to react to them. But even from a personal standpoint, sometimes not having a roadmap. I'm blessed with a very patient wife, but I never told her that I was going to be where we are here today and I didn't really have the plan. I just kind of reacted to opportunities, and that's how we got here. But I think even for family life and personal life, it's important to have more of a strategy, more of a plan that everybody understands where you're going. They're going to face more disruptors, and I mean, look at the disruptors that the retail industry has gone through with e-commerce and this type of thing. I don't know what the disruptors are going to be in our industry, but I know if I knew what they were, they wouldn't be a disruptor, right? But I think when the disruptors come to react to them and not bury your head in the sand, whatever that might be, whether it's uh, consumer trends, whatever it might be, that they respond to it. But ultimately, I think there's many opportunities for them and in this country in general. There's opportunities for uh, lots of things to get involved in and to from a business standpoint. And so I'm optimistic that they have the right people, they have the right attitude. They realize that they need to be servant leaders and they need to build teams. And 10 to 20 years from now, it depends so much what these disruptors are, what they're going to need to respond to, and maybe we have to diversify. We have a lot of I do have concerns about concentration. We do have a lot of investment in live hog production, and that is a lot of concentration. So they're going to have their hands full, but I think ultimately I'm optimistic that they're up to it.
Great conversation, John. Thanks for joining us on CEOs of the industry.
Thank you, Jim.